All
Welcome,
right.
Nicole.
Some new friends, some old friends.
That's right.
We're
Lots
gaining
of new names.
momentum, everyone. Claire, high five. Way to see you again. Laura, where'd you go? High five. Douglas, high five. PJ, high five. It's like Shannon. Everyone, we're a family now. Look, we're building a cohort on demand. It'll be good. Good energy, you know? If nothing else, I always joke that, Emily, I'll just sell my intensity and my energy every Monday morning. I'll just come and hype everybody up. 8 a.m., we'll kick off the week.
I appreciate it. I feel like it scares some folks.
Hey, no low grade shade here. It's all good. All right. Are we, what do you think? Are we about ready to get going here?
Oh, yeah.
All right, wonderful. All right, well, welcome, everybody. My name is Adam Pulisic. As you know, our gracious host, Emily from GPNP and the Forbes Funds and her collective family, I see Brianna and others that have made this all possible, is our last of 3 information sessions around cohorts that are coming up. So the first cohort was all around humanity-centered design. We talked a little bit about the influence of AI, of taming and shaping problems, and where some of the unfair advantages we're going to try to unearth for everybody are. We just wrapped literally a minute ago our AI-assisted development director cohort. So not only teaching kind of foundational ways of communicating and provocative and challenge-based methods, but also using AI to accelerate that process and sort of welcome everyone else into the development journey that wants to participate, with hopefully removing some of that otherwise ever-present anxiety and frustration about asking people for money and resources and enduring through that 95% rejection rate, which is considered success, I guess, in development. And now we're rolling into the top of our kind of scaffolding or our ladder here around the idea of AI first. So, you know, really our humanity-centered design cohort is something we call augmented AI. It's when AI runs in the background and does a bunch of wonderful things for us. The middle cohort around development director work was really around AI assisted. So how do we bring AI as a junior employee into the mix? And now we are into the AI first moment, where how are we training AI to be our colleague that still is representing kind of that assisting, supporting role, but doing the work like they have a job description. So that's what we're going to be covering today. Let's go ahead and jump in, unless anybody has any burning questions or thoughts. All right. Good to see. Good resolution so far.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kit. All right. So Kit and I have been thinking a lot about welcoming our AI colleagues. Kit, you want to say hi to everybody as my founder in change?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here today.
Kit's going to be helping us sort of mind the comments in the chat, which I hope you'll make many of, or make sure that I don't get on one of my rambling kind of professor roles along the journey. So he'll be throwing all the sharp elbows at me if you have questions, but obviously don't be afraid to come off mute or write anything down while we're coming together. This cohort is really about 2 big things. One is about getting comfortable and understanding how to challenge this kind of wild and wonderful world of artificial intelligence that we're all experiencing. Challenge it from a value lens, challenge it from an equity lens, challenge it from an equality lens, challenge it from an effective and efficiency lens, right? These are all things we're going to learn how to challenge this technology that we're all seeing. I'm going to try to be some of your guide here, although I know we're going to be teachers to each other, because I've spent more than about 10 years at Carnegie Mellon thinking just how technology changes people's lives. So over the course of the last 10 years, I've been talking about Jedi mind tricks, hence the reason why we're talking about persuasion and influence in our middle cohort. I teach a lot in something called the Human Computer Interaction Institute, which is all about shaping the craziness of the world and taming that complexity. But my love language really about how to use modern day technology like AI to sort of make organizations more effective without losing the voice, tone, or culture of that very, very important human-led service that people deliver. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the cohort, but I'm actually going to show you ways to sort of learn about how we are challenging the terrible level of bias and inequality that exists in large technology systems today for a variety of reasons. And we're going to talk about how you can actually employ it and do it along your own journey. You know, the kind of funny tongue-in-cheek moment, as Kit and I would joke, is that, you know, everyone has a different association with AI, right? And this cohort, unlike all the other cohorts, when we're thinking about more like colleagues and less like assisting us in a tools and app capacity, is a little bit nerve-wracking. I don't know about you, but it took me a while to get comfortable with the idea of exactly what I was taking on and tackling here with AI. And so it's okay to come into this cohort being paranoid. It's okay to come into this cohort being skeptical. this cohort is about kind of seeing that monster, which is AI, kind of living outside of the bedroom and taming it and making your pet and bringing it in the good old fashioned spirit of cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Because things like this are going to be increasingly disruptive to how we need to work, but they're also going to have greater and greater risk potentially to the vulnerable communities and populations we serve. And it's important, just like the Forbes Fund and GPNP have set a standard for ethical use of advanced technology, that we honor that in the cohort. And we not only teach you what we are thinking about technology, but also how you might challenge other technologies in your life that are going to be using or leaning heavily on AI. And, this is on the back of the idea that like everyone's actually relatively ready to embrace AI, except for the people that it's going to disrupt the perception of their jobs in. So if we ask ourselves honestly, like, hey, do consumers mind AI? Do we mind AI helping us find directions and navigating to the right restaurants or translating one language in one sentence to one language in another sentence? I think you're going to find that people are really excited and receptive. Now, this is a little dated, even this study by the powers that be from May 2022. And so we like to believe that increasingly now that, over half of the kind of knowledge workforce is using AI on a daily basis, that we ultimately kind of honor the spirit of that. The other side of this, and this is me being incredibly candid with this group, is I am tired of the social impact and nonprofit sector not being the first customer of technology advancement. We are the center of the universe because we are the only industry that can claim with absolute certainty that we focus on humans. And I know about you, but I'm sick of everyone telling me we need more AI to sell more potato chips or do whatever else on the internet. Like, this is where it matters. And so it's on us to invest in the industry and the opportunity to not get left behind, and then to take the table scraps, right, of the corporate and for-profit companies that decide after they've gotten everything they want in a feature set, how AI is going to serve us. So we got to attack it, right? And we're hoping, the Forbes Funds and GPNP has made an investment on your behalf to really kind of make some of this modern technology much more accessible. It's also okay to realize that it's going to be a balance, right? So two things can be true in the social impact sector. That we get a little bit of like another tool or another technology or another thing that feels like it gets in the way of delivering service. And on the other side, recognizing that service is almost impossible to deliver at the maximum scale without using tech. Because the truth is this: even if it's something as simple as responding to emails that come to the generic inbox, the average nonprofit is less than a 50% response rate within 4 days of an inbound inquiry. And for good reason. Like, you're doing the hard work inside of the schools. You're out there trying to advocate for the right kind of policy in Harrisburg. You're doing the right types of training. You're learning another tool or technology. Right? It's just tough to keep up. And so I wanted to honor that the spirit of this cohort is really about finding capacity that you didn't have and investing in capacity that you need, not just stretching your employees further and further from their core and their center by adding additional tools and techniques. We lovingly in like Nerdville at Carnegie Mellon call this building a drawer full of apps. We don't need to give you another app. The joke is in the medical healthcare space, right? The truth is that all of those electronic medical and health records do have value, but the primary purpose is for the administrator of the hospital, not for the physician delivering care. And so we have to honor that spirit in this cohort, that the reason that we fundamentally use AI is because it's just more effective and cheaper to deliver an outcome that we could otherwise achieve with human capacity, not that we want to use AI by default for everything. And that's important, right? Because as much as Kit and I build AI for a living, we're humans first, and we will always be humans first in everything we do. And at any point in time, like as we explore not only just some of the core elements of building your first digital AI employee, but also contextualize on AI, you're going to have an important and big voice in how that AI gets developed, right? And how you can develop it for yourself. So I wanted to show a quick demo for about 10 minutes about how to think about AI, but I wanted to kind of pause here to see if there's any questions or reactions, or if Emily, you wanted to add anything before we show what literal building a digital colleague looks like and how we're going to advance that in this cohort.
I don't have anything. I don't want to take up any time unless somebody has a question.
There'll be opportunities for questions at the end, correct?
Yes.
Very much so. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Hopefully there'll be even more questions after I show you what it actually works like. One technologist to another peach. Okay. So the idea is, let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get into a general chat experience. So how I did this is I came to skillbuilder.io, and I'm just going to go ahead and log in. And Emily and Fred and Olivia and Hannah have been kind enough to share with me access to their Forbes funds and GPNP Skilly. This is only a quick taster, so the test here is going to be demonstrating the types of AI that are going to be present and how we control for data security and privacy and bias. Lots and lots of stuff to unpack and explore when we get into the actual cohort. So at a fundamental level, the purpose of what we will be starting our AI journey on is to be able to inventory our toughest questions that people ask, whether those are stakeholders like funders or employees, right? Or obviously the community we serve, to understand how to train that AI with answers to that question that is representative of the voice, tone, and culture that matters to your org. And then learning how to actually conversate and set expectations and reinforce with this new AI employee how to do their job that you're hiring for them, which could be everything from answering all the questions we have internally to fundamentally being externalized to an outside audience so that anyone comes to your website, no matter if it's 11 p.m. or 6 a.m., doesn't matter if it's on the top of a high holiday or not, and able to have an empathetic and authentic conversation in the voice, tone, and culture of an organization, right? Not just one of these generic chat body experiences. So in order to do that, there's a couple things we're going to talk about in this cohort, one of which is how we organize data. Because how you organize your own data is not just a great exercise to get everybody on the same page. It's a way that you protect your proprietary way of saying things in the voice, tone, and culture that the population or the community that's underutilized or underserved needs to hear it in order to react to your communications and really respond and engage. This is something that despite all the incredible dollars that have gone into ChatGPT or other kind of big, what they call large language models, has not been achieved because those large language models follow capitalism. So what's tricky about AI that's in the open, right, is they optimize for the most popular dollar spend, wallet shared themes and topics that exist on the internet. You'll be shocked to hear that that is not housing in the north side of Pittsburgh, right? So we have to acknowledge that there's really, really big power in generic AI. And there's a 14-minute video that's embedded in these slides if you want to understand how we utilize that kind of tech to lower our cost. But we protect your data and we don't necessarily share anything but what we absolutely need to with any other model in order to get an answer. So primarily, the first thing we do in our cohort is to ultimately organize our organization around the questions and the answers that we're going to need to build our AI and train our digital employee on. Now, in order to create those questions, you can use our AI question generator. And what it'll do is the AI will go out, and this is a live example. So, we'll see how the software behaves itself today because AI can be a spicy thing. And you can see that it just read the totality of GPNP and Forbes website. So in the 5 seconds that I was waiting, the AI went and read what a human would otherwise take 10 hours to fundamentally process instantaneously. We could then go into, I don't know, something along the lines of, let's say, what do you want to focus on here, Em, today? What's the big moment? Should we do maybe grant funding? That seems to be a topic that everybody cares just a
for
little bit
sure.
about, right? So I'll pick any one of these themes. I could pick many themes. And now what the AI is going to do is generate the questions based on a contextual graph of what's happening on the internet. What are the likely questions that are going to come in? So, Em, do me a favor and read kind of digitally over my shoulder for a second here. What is the application process for the Forbes Funds and GPNP grant funding? A question that you get from time to time. Okay.
All the time.
So, yeah, all the time, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just for really quickly, I could add all of these questions, or I could add none of these questions, right, to my AI instance in order to say, hey, these are the questions that matter. And then once I'm in, let me choose something like here. Are there, here we go. What types of project initiatives are eligible? Let's go ahead and add this question, although I could add many. I'll kind of finalize in summary, which tells the AI this question was important, the other 19 weren't, and I'll add it to my database. So one of the things we're going to work on is root cause of questions, types of questions, realities about questions, right? In addition to that, we're going to also be able to either add answers to these questions manually because we know that our team or our experts or outside people can ultimately weigh in and give an authentic video, audio, screen recording, or text response, let alone files or uploads. Or we're going to use Skilly, our AI, to attempt to answer this question. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Skilly, and she's going to read that question, what types of projects or initiatives are eligible, and she's going to attempt to answer this. And so you can see in like 3 seconds or less, right, we've gone in here and says, hey, the Forbes and GPNP provide grant funding for project initiatives, yada, yada, yada. And I can start with this answer over here. But I can also do things using AI to say like, hey, how can I make this answer more concise? And there's a variety of other prompts and tools along the way. And we call this kind of our question dojo, and which I can replace my answer accordingly. And then when I save and review, what's happening now is I am being additive here and actually adding that answer to my database. So I'm using AI to generate the questions that people are going to potentially ask. I'm using AI to generate the answers that people are going to fundamentally want to come back to. And the kind of last thing we'll talk a little bit about is how do you train a conversational bot, right? So this is now an internal tool that everybody in this cohort will have access to. And you could ask it things like, who is Olivia Benson? So we'll see if this comes up with special victims unit or SVUs, Olivia Benson. It turns out that a contextualized audience ends up knowing exactly who Olivia Benson is. Now, here's what's interesting about this. Not only does this internal AI tell us a little bit about the answer to this question, but it also helps us understand what sources of video or PDFs or PowerPoints or URLs were used to create this answer. Meaning I now can understand what the AI is referencing, because if it's saying the wrong thing or an out-of-date thing or a culturally insensitive thing or a too brief or brash or whatever the tonality is that you need to have, you now have the ability to quickly understand exactly what that is. And you can actually go to the website and understand that it looks like Olivia is, in and around here, kind of somewhere on the design kind of thinking piece. So if we found Olivia here, it looks like, oh, there's Olivia, along the journey. So that's why it found Olivia on this particular site. And then if we were to look at one of these, kind of various videos along the way, if I was to go ahead and open up Olivia's video here. Oops, sorry, just get one more second. If I can learn how to click along the way, I'm going to go ahead and share that video so you can see, even with the sound, that it referenced an artifact that was otherwise in the system.
At the Forbes Funds and the Greater Pittsburgh Nonprofit Partnership, we do offer scholarships. Please reach out to us and we'll be happy to talk to you about those available options.
So as you can see here, right, Liv has fundamentally trained our Skilly AI employee and then also continuously created video and content that we shared on things like LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, and the like. And as you'll notice, all of these files show the reference. You can control everything that is in your system by managing in the upload knowledge capacity. So you can add URLs, you can add files, you can add anything and everything that you think is proprietary. And the advantage to this is not only are you getting your authentic voice, tone, and culture via your URLs, videos, and documents, but you're excluding all this information from being automatically absorbed into bigger models like ChatGPT. So there's a video that's quite extensive that explains this, but the sort of shorthand here is we've created sort of a separate vault for all of your files to go. If we need to reference something like ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude or Google's Palm or Facebook's Hugging Face, which are all kind of nerdy models that we use to do some magic behind the scenes, we only take snippets or synthetic examples of what your videos or text say and submit that. We don't submit the totality of the files, which is why we've created a model agnostic baseline. This is really important for those that aren't following the AI news, because yesterday, OpenAI had a significant down era because of a bunch of bad state actors that temporarily suspended the services, which didn't make it wrong or inaccurate, but did make it slow. And all our model did was switch from OpenAI to Anthropic's Claude, right? And then it mixed in Hugging Face to complement. It's sort of, we jokingly call it the Velveeta cheese of technologies, because there's 15 different ways to make the actual formula and it never needs to be refrigerated. Fun facts about Velveeta. Multiple formulas and no refrigeration needed. Okay, the other side of this, which is really important, is you see this access button here. Access has 3 basic dimensions for how the AI is permissioned to use this particular answer or file. External means that the AI can talk about this file or excerpts from this file internally or externally, meaning if you put Skilly on the outside of your website or in your LinkedIn profile or on your Trustpilot score as a URL, Skilly can talk to anyone about anything that this file is or anything else it's referenced. If it's listed as internal, then it's only going to appear in the internal chat that I was showing you just a minute ago. And if you mark it as exclude, it's going to still acknowledge that the file exists in the AI graph of knowledge, but it's intentionally going to use it as an anti-pattern to not reference it, either an internal or an external. But it's important that we don't delete or archive out old files, because the AI needs to know what you no longer want to talk about, just like a new employee would need to know what's explicitly not supposed to be talked about, as opposed to just guessing what they don't know. And then you see this not just in the kind of upload knowledge dynamic, but in the question section. Along every different answer, you also have an external, internal, and exclude. And again, these are just additional controls that we have built in, very atypical to other AI solutions, in order to have absolute control of what's included, what's not included, and absolute transparency about what's being referenced to create that answer versus not create that answer. And the last thing I'll show you just before we turn it over to Em for her question is this idea of setting goals. And so another big thing that we're going to do inside of this cohort is actually start to train or give instruction to our junior employee, which happens to be AI. And so if you just click this add new goal dimension, as you can see, they would populate based on what your goal is, how you would achieve it, and ultimately how they reach that goal. You can click it here. And then, obviously, if you were on a new account that had AI activated, it wouldn't just say, hey there, Skilly Chat is under development, because you wouldn't be percolating it. But you could say things like, donation is the goal. And then if we came to my Forbes Fund website here, and we found ourselves in a place where we could, I'm assuming, go to the link donate. Let's see if I'm right. Well played, Forbes Fund. So I could grab that URL, and I could come back in and I could say, how do you reach that goal? Well, you present them that URL, and then I just type out in natural language to program my AI. When people ask, 3 or more questions about the day-to-day programming, please suggest this URL. If they don't click it, please ask them to follow us on Twitter, Instagram. And if I click save, right, this URL would actually populate. And now the AI, if it was externalized, would know that that's the goal it's trying to seek in conversation. And that really kind of rounds the circuit of really what makes this truly unique when it comes to this cohort, is that we are literally learning how to train, manage rejection, hold accountability, these digital employees that are extensions of our natural voice, tone, and culture, trying to achieve in our first use case development effort from inbound inquiries. And ultimately in the future, right, add additional alignment and reinforcement for anyone in your organization, whether it's a new employee, a volunteer, or a legacy employee, to be able to ask the hive mind of the organization at any time how to answer a question. And as I mentioned, we have this video, which Emily will send.
All right, everyone, it's the moment we've been waiting for. Let's welcome our first digital colleague, Skilly.
And so you'd have the opportunity to actually hear me interview the AI and talk about how we build this data together, and additional things that we do behind the scenes that are not in the UI of the tool, but are elements that we are doing again and again behind the scenes to keep our ethical and transparent persuasion and influence model above board. The good news is that 1 in 4 organizations are already fundamentally using AI, and that is across the board. That is not just a for-profit sector. So we know that people are increasingly going to bet on AI. And so the question we have on you is, how might you impact or sort of increase the impact of your organization if you had an extra employee or an extra 2,000 hours a year of capacity for someone to do things like answer questions, align or onboard employees, or fundamentally help us or coach us towards our most effective answers. All right. So I think that was everything with 5 minutes left to spare that I wanted to cover for today. Emily, anything that you wanted to kind of weigh in? I know you had your hand up for some questions. I'd be more than happy to answer anything as well from the audience if we have anything out from our chat.
Yeah, I just put 2 links in. So January 8th, Adam kind of kicked off this discussion publicly with our members, diving a little bit deeper into AI and the different applications of leading into these 3 cohorts. And so I put that video first. And then the second one, which Adam just shared his screen, going over Skilly specifically as this 3rd cohort product, is the second YouTube link. So those are, for your review outside of this time. two things I wanted to add in terms of the training the AI piece. Best example for the exclude, we literally just workshopped this about a week and a half ago because there were some, I think it was language from when we were doing emergency grants from COVID, that was being shared when people would ask Skilly, like, hey, what is the Forbes funds? And so there was all of this like benefits for staff and all of these things. That's not accurate. That's not what we do with the management assistance grants. And so you can go in and exclude specific pieces of data that you can say, hey, Skilly sourced this from here. And outside of AI, again, getting back to that human piece, it's helpful to say, you know what, maybe that web page that says that information should be taken down because that could confuse people on the mission of the Forbes Funds and GPNP and what we're actually doing. So it's another place of, okay, if this is out there somewhere and confusing people, the story or mission of our work, let's remove that as a factor. The second piece in terms of like the goal setting, there are a lot of different types of goals. Yes, the donation piece was a really great example, but if you have events coming up, like one of your prompts can be, if a person asks more than 2 times about upcoming things or, products that you have, make sure you send them a link to this event and encourage them to register. So there's a lot of different action items that you can program there, that I just wanted to emphasize kind of more day-to-day versus the logistics behind the AI, because this is, I think, month 5 or 6 for me, training and like working with AI, and it's still confusing sometimes. And so again, having this cohort to be able to walk through a bunch of folks probably with the same questions as you is really invaluable. And because we have invested in this so much with Adam and Kit, probably not going to be this affordable in a couple of months either, when more of these resources are coming out. And like Adam shared, there's like a beta testing that happens with for-profit sector, and then we get the, well, do you want this feature? Do you want this feature? Do you want this feature? Each of them is $1,000, et cetera. And so again, really centering the work of nonprofits, being human-centered, being the center of the earth, as Adam so graciously said, is really important. So that's why we're doing this work and making it accessible from the jump with all of you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Questions, reactions, comments? I'm sure there's no questions about AI. I'm sure it's very clear to everybody.
Hi, Adam. This is Fasa. Y'all know me as PJ. Just wanted to, again, I really enjoyed the presentation. I was a part of the first cohort as well. My question is kind of a double-sided question. The first piece is, you mentioned that this is adaptable, and that's a big part of how you all are approaching things. My focus is on data sovereignty, building an ISO around, protecting the community and ethical frameworks that support the community through this digital transformation that's taking place. Most of the legislation and regulation hasn't really landed in the space that we're currently operating in. And I wonder, what is like how modular and how adaptable is this platform to be able to adjust to ethical and responsible AI frameworks that haven't even landed yet and haven't even been clearly defined? And then how are you working with, or are you open to working with people that are building those types of things to make sure that the resilient communities that platforms like this are meant to support aren't being marginalized based off the data that they're bringing to the table that is actually training this platform?
Yeah, so the first question, no offense, Peach, is a little unfair. How will I adapt to frameworks that don't exist yet? Well, the good news is we'll be open to adapt it. But here's the reality on the first principle of like all forms of AI and machine learning, right? So there's a place the data needs to sit. So at the most foundational level, like we have what's called an individual or sort of single tenant mindset about each and everyone's data. So your data that you bring to the party is your data. And I think that's an important foundational principle to just understand about what we do and how we treat data. So you're bringing data for your benefit. We intentionally only abstract or synthetically copy paste snippets of that data in order to create answers and inference with the AI. So I think at the basic level, right, first and foremost, you're not uploading your data to a black box, which is what all major LLMs are today. And then the second thing is, you're only allowing your data to be processed that you want to be processed. So I think those are important kind of just like basic rules of like, where does your data sit and where's your vault? I think the second question is that who is processing the data? Is it an external actor like a Amazon, or is it like a specific actor like Skill Builder? And in this case, it is us processing your data internally with our large language models and our AI, not by using all the other assets or sort of models out there to do it. I think the third thing is we built our AI to be large language model agnostic, which means today we use OpenAI and Claude and Palm and Hugging Face as our 4 major models. But there's open source components of Mistral and the like. There's different types of LLMs, and we've used a technology called LangChain, which is not a thing that anyone should know what it means. It just means that we can triage and call different models or different combinations of models, based on what makes sense for the market and who's honoring those extensible kind of conditions. So those are just some of the ways that we have kind of readied ourselves for sort of the infinite change that's about to come, and how we are really focused on, one, making sure your data stays your data. 2, making sure that we don't lean on kind of arm's length distance, kind of big black data holes, right, that have historically proven to not honor the voice, tone, and culture of, underserved and under-US communities. So we protect kind of the wall data from that. The third thing is, actually, PJ, this is a good point. When we grade our data for effectiveness, right, there's a lot of reinforcements that the reason why we have a SaaS tool, meaning the UI tool that you saw, is because we need, not only want or open to, people that represent the community, the problem, the cause, the geography, to be actively as humans in the lead, not humans in the loop, guiding the voice, tone, and culture. And so, why we took us over a year to build after 4 years of research, what we did is because we realized if we didn't build that UI, right, and we only had a chat interference, which only made you a consumer of a product, right, and not a co-author of the product, that it was never going to authentically keep, even if it was in a moment of time, like on brand culture or voice. Kind of lastly, as we start to externalize Skilly, right, the feedback mechanism on those chats becomes really clear about the effectiveness of the chat, the effectiveness of that chat to sign somebody up for a program, to recruit somebody to a newsletter, to get them to follow your socials or to donate or to participate or to read or whatever the action is that you want. And so unlike so many tools that are around kind of effort-based models of aggregating or summarizing, this is an AI that has a job to be done. Right? This is an AI that can get measured based on the metric of how effective was the AI at answering external or internal questions and organizing. And then throughout all of this, there's some kind of nerd science in the background, which PJ don't know, but for others' benefit, is called adversarial machine learning. And so what we do is we use other models that are not the original model or combinations of models that provided an answer to score that answer. Because the challenge with the speed and the volume of AI answering potentially thousands of concurrent conversations is that you can't individually intervene as a human, but you can use other AI to actually look at the answer that one or more models already facilitated and then grade it on a scale of 1 to 10 and look for things like toxicity and bias and the like. The other part of this, which is also really important, is unlike a generalist LLM, like large language model, our chat has been constructed to directly be anti-racist and fight the idea of people trying to inject heinously bad, negative nonsense in the AI. And so it avoids the trap of being accidentally or passively trained with the passive aggressiveness or the sort of the mid-grade racism that is omnipresent everywhere that we experience, or classism or like ableist kind of dynamics that come through. That will not be perfect at the start. In fact, PJ, that's a nice alley-oop to kind of what you were hinting at, because the place we really need collaboration on and co-creation on, hence this cohort, is like, well, how do we have someone that could score the model relative to how we answer and respectfully dialogue with someone who is housing insecure or hunger insecure right now, right? Like, that is not a thing that any model on the planet has done well, and it's not a thing that anyone's going to do for us on average. But we think that some of the levers and the tools we have will at least provide the transparency so we can at least decide if it's working or not. Now, the dual side of the coin there is, like, I'm admitting that we're not going to be perfect. And I'm admitting that it's going to come with the best version with the least bias we possibly can. But the real here is that, like, don't want everybody who wants this to be the maximally beneficial for your unique local geographic people-centered problem to kind of weigh in here. Hence the reason why the Forbes is putting the dynamic together. And so in that vein, the only hope is that as many human beings as possible that represent the problem, the solution, and the connective tissue between are actively in the skillbuilder.io instance. And it's why Emily will say again in a minute that we want you to bring at least 3, upwards of 5 people to this cohort. And that includes things like funders and the population you serve. All right,
Adam,
PJ, how'd I do?
Thank you. You covered everything probably. I'm not really familiar at a high level. I'm at a high level with the adversarial machine learning piece,
Oh, cool.
but I did. What was the name you said? Line chain, which allowed
Oh,
for you.
Lang chain. Yeah. And by the way,
Lang chain.
just email me and I'll send you all these like nerd vocabulary. In fact, part of what we do in the very earliest part of this cohort is we do that kind of flashcard model of like the 50 things you need to know about
Mhm.
AI to just not look silly, but also admit that you're not a computer scientist. Because most of us will remind yourselves again and again in AI cohort that for the first time ever, you program with natural language, right? You program with your voice. That's what makes this cohort so powerful is that everyone, just like I made my case in my first cohort that everyone was a designer. I made my case in the second cohort that everyone can be a salesperson. My promise to everyone in this cohort is you can all be programmers of artificial intelligence. I promise you. I've watched people from 8 years old to 80 years old do this very thing that we are asking. And as long as you can use your fingers to type or your voice to enunciate, right? Normal instruction you would give to another human being, then all of your AI colleagues can learn and grow and be held accountable in the exact same way.
Thanks.
Of course. Thanks for asking the question. I really appreciate it more than you know. So, Em, I think we're a few minutes over, and I want to be as respectful as we can for being a little bit of a punk and taking everybody here 5 minutes over. Does anybody want to chat a question, or should we let Emily kind of wrap us up and make sure everybody knows if you wanted to progress, how to do all that?
I can take it. Okay. So I just put a link in the chat for actually registering for the cohorts. I do want to say, for cohort 3, when you look at the price tag, if you are like, I can't participate, reach out to me, because Forbes Funds is subsidizing part of that price tag for GPNP members to make this accessible. And so if we need to talk about, like, hey, I have exactly this amount budgeted, but I really want to do this cohort and this cohort, we'll try to work with you. So Emily at ForbesFunds.org. I'm sure you're probably sick of getting emails from me, but in case you got forwarded this invite and don't have it, I'm just going to put it in the chat anyway. But I mean, yeah, as Adam shared, equity and accessibility, especially as this is an emergent technology, is really at the forefront for this. And so part of that is figuring out ways we can make this accessible to nonprofits. I see a lot of thanks and positive reactions in the chat. I really appreciate everyone for joining the calls. If you have any questions, Adam and Kit, would you mind putting your emails in the chat, since I think this is probably the most technical of the 3 cohorts and where we'll get the most kind of qualifiers or participation pieces before people commit to joining. So with all that said, I'll send out the recordings to all 3 of the sessions, to everyone who registered for one of them, just in case you're interested in right sizing. And if you have any questions, reach out to Kit, Adam, or myself, and we'll get you in the right spot. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Emily. Thank you, everybody. I'll stick around for a couple more minutes if anybody wants to, but don't feel like you need to roll. Stick around, excuse me. Feel free to roll. No worries.